Hi, everybody. Welcome to the EdjSports Head Coach Rankings. I'm Ian O'Connor. I'm joined by Frank Frigo. And this week, we'll look at our EdjSports Head Coach Rankings through Week 15. Now, there is a slight shakeup in the top three this week. John Harbaugh is still at number 1. Kyle Shanahan is still at number 2. But Andy Reid jumps up 2 spots to number 3.
We're really starting to see the Edge coaches rankings come into focus and the cream rising to the top. Andy Reid has certainly been at the helm of one of the more analytically driven clubs, and we're seeing the results this year.
And next, we're going to look at a coach who's dropped down the rankings the last couple of weeks, despite his team's success. That's Mike Zimmer of Minnesota.
Right. Mike Zimmer has dropped to 8th, and he was as high as 3 just a few weeks ago. The Vikings overall are 10th in CCI and 8th in EPI. They won handily this week, but still Zimmer made quite a few errors. An example of that would be midway through the third quarter, they were leading 22-10 and had a 4th and 1 on the Chargers' 9-yard line. They were in a pretty dominant position at this point with their GWC north of 90%, but this was still an error that they need to pay attention to. In other game situations, it would have cost them much more. In this case, it was a little over 1%.
Yep, he kicked the field goal in that situation. He's been hit and miss in fourth down situations this season, yet they're still in the hunt for the division, and they're very close to clinching a playoff berth as well. So let's hope he doesn't make a mistake like this that costs him a playoff game later in the year. And now we'll go in the opposite direction. We'll talk about a coach who continues to perform much better than he's perceived to be, and that's Dan Quinn in Atlanta.
Yeah, so Dan Quinn's a bit of an enigma. He has certainly been tagged with some of the most egregious errors that we've seen in the past. But they move up to 3rd in the CCI rankings. Their EPI has risen up to 21st from 27th just 4 weeks ago. He's certainly one of those coaches that you see on the hot seat this year. But, with a top 5 in CCI rank, the Falcons have certainly performed better over the last few weeks.
And it's no surprise to say that the Falcons have really underperformed the season as a whole. So then how has he continued to sit so high in CCI when the Falcons are only 5-9 this year?
Yeah, well, a big part of our criteria on how we judge coaches is what we would expect their errors to be in these key fourth down situations as a function of how strong the offense is, because there's clearly a correlation with that. So in the case of the Falcons, they've really only given up about 48% of in errors of what we would have expected him to give up for a team of their EPI level. For perspective on this, Baltimore has given up the lowest percentage of expectations. So Baltimore, with their very high caliber offense, is still only giving up errors at about 40% of what we would have expected. I think their overall total error cost this year is about 40%, which is one of the lowest, which is really extraordinary when you think of what a powerful team they are. On the flip side of that, Detroit's given up the highest percentage of expectations. So Detroit has the distinction of having a very poor performing year and also one of the highest overall error rates.
Right, and it looks like Matt Patricia will be back for season number 3 in Detroit. I think I saw earlier today. So he's definitely going to have to improve on that if he wants to be around for season number 4. As always, keep in mind these rankings are only based on decisions this season, and since not every team plays a meaningful game in Week 17, our coaches will only be analyzed on their games through this weekend. So be sure to keep an eye out for our last EdjSports Head Coach Rankings next week, just ahead of Black Monday. Don't forget to follow us on EdjSports and Football Outsiders, and have happy holidays.